Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks, another match beyond all reason. Today we're taking a look at a match that was played recently on flats and passes. Oh gosh, we don't see this map all too often. I have to remind myself the name. Plains and passes, that's right, plains and passes. And today, representing the blue team, goes by the name of Akao Adonis, the blue team leader here. Coming in as an Armada commander, 31 true skill, silver chevrons to boot, should be showing us exactly what they've got here. Spawning in the backline of the blue team, so probably going to be going for either tech or air. We'll have to see depending on what they go for. Looks like Kivitachi here on the blue team is going to be going for air, so I'm expecting Akao Adonis is going to be showing us their tech build. I'm glad to see it. All the way on the other side of the map, representing the red team is a Cortex commander, going into a bot lab here on this fairly open map, but yeah, terrain gets a little complicated in the middle, so I think bots does make sense. It's Zemolix. Zemolix, we'll go with Zemolix. Zemolix here, going to be spawning off of 2 metal extractors into the solar panel wind turbine bot lab start that's fairly standard. Diversifying the economy here a little bit, protecting against any wind stalls, although for the time being, the wind speed is actually fabulous. Well, okay. As if to prove me wrong, the wind speed has plummeted all the way from 20. Jesus, all the way down to about 6 or so. All right, well, just to spite me, I suppose the wind showing just how fickle it can be, and I'm sure Zemolix, as well as anybody else that invested in solar panels, is going to be happy that they did so. Lots of trees available on this map, so that does mean that energy reclaim is going to be very important. There's also a whole lot of metal out here in the middle of the map that's going to be important to reclaim as well, so I'd love to see some commanders sending some res bots over in that direction. We already have 2 res bots out right here for the red commander, and we certainly could go for another one. Res bots are cheap, especially when they can double, triple, or even quadruple their value by just eating up a whole bunch of rocks. You can see here, tons and tons of metal out on the field, 250 there, 250 there, 200 there, 100 there. Just a whole bunch of metal lying in the rocks all over the place. One of the things you can do is if you specifically hover over one of these rocks, you left click and then drag. Hold on, let me select something that can actually reclaim. You left click and drag. You can actually reclaim only the rocks. So if I release this, it would just select only the rocks in this area, so you can reclaim all those without wasting time reclaiming the plants. A similar command, since we're on the topic, to reclaim, say for instance you have a lot of wind turbines you want to reclaim, you can hit E to reclaim things, and then you can hold left Alt, and then click on the wind turbine and drag a big circle, and this will only select wind turbines to reclaim right here. It's a helpful trick for when you're in the mid to late game and you're trying to transition away and you have suddenly all these wind turbines buy all your build power and you don't really need those anymore once you're ready to move on to fusions, advanced fusions, all that sort of stuff. It's a helpful little trick to know. It's one of those things that I love about Bar, is that there's fun little tricks to do just about basically everything in the game that you want to. There's almost always some janky solution to any problem, and a lot of times there's even non-jank solutions to problems. A little bit of a late start right here. Chicken nipples, not moving forward very quickly here. Getting the build power up though, so I'm glad to see it. At the very least, that build power is going to mean that this lab can stay producing, and we are going for bots, so at the very least this army is pretty cheap, so it's not really going to matter all too much. Yeah, rovers were thinking about going across right here. Okay. At the very least, they're scouted, so that does mean that the green commander on the southern side, the lime green commander, the electric green commander, is not going to be caught off guard here for the time being. Going heavily into that wind production though, and again, like I said, that wind speed, if you don't have a battery, which the green player does have, it's one of the things that I've been learning recently. If you don't have that battery, the wind speed can definitely mess with you in the early game when it plummets and you just don't have any way to recover it. Usually with a battery or two though, you will end up working out just fine. There we go, we do have a res bot in the middle of the map. Nicely done by Evangelion, I suppose, or Evangelion? Let me know how it's supposed to be pronounced. Evangelion, I'll go with Evangelion. I think I've heard it pronounced Evangelion before. Either way, so I know that's like a random side tangent, but I was talking to my friends about Evangelion and whether it was the pinnacle of anime, and it was a heated debate about whether that represented the ultimate anime or whether that represented the worst anime. It seemed like it was extremely polarized between our group. Let me know what you think about that down below if you've ever seen it. If you don't know what Evangelion is, you don't need to worry about it. Don't stumble down that rabbit hole. A little Bert building the wind turbines extremely close together right here. I'd love to see these spaced out just a click. If you space them out by just one priority like this, by hitting either Z or X to space or decrease the space, you just click them one apart like that, they're not going to chain react. As it's set up right now by Little Bert, these wind turbines will chain react if even 3 of them explode here. Makes them very vulnerable to tick harassment, for instance, which is, in the early games on a map this wide, very, very dangerous. Chicken Nipple's already going for a more complex... Yeah, more complex army here. We are going up to, it looks like Pawn and Rocketeer is going to be the name of the game. I think it's powerful. Gonna be tricky against the blitzes, though. Looks like we did snipe a construction vehicle. That's also pretty nice. Sniping a construction vehicle here and there is really good, but especially you tend to compare, or at least I tend to compare construction vehicles to construction bots, but they really are much more expensive, and so it's a lot more beneficial to take down a construction vehicle, or a lot more detrimental to the vehicle player to take down a construction vehicle than it is to a bot player to take down a bot, constructor bot. Part of the reasoning for that, of course, is the fact that, yeah, bots have res bots, right? So they can pick up those constructors and get them back to work, whereas vehicle players don't really have that luxury. They're going to have to worry about just reclaiming that metal and trying to use it some other way. The train moving through here. Not the A train, just the train. Moving around here, using a tick to scout around. I'd love to see if we could snipe this constructor right here. Did we see the constructor? We know that there's something over there. I'd love to see that moved over in that direction. Okay. Yeah, trying to do a little bit of damage over with the tick. Yeah, you can see the plotting path is trying to get this tick into the backline here. Let's see. The grunt has a speed, a DPS of 37 to 74. Oh, is that at like close range versus at maximum range? I bet that's what that is. That's actually a really nice indicator right there. What is the speed of this? The move speed of 81 versus the pawn's move speed of 87. So pawns are officially faster than grunts now. Good to see. While I was busy looking at that, I do apologize. Missed a commander trade over here. You can sort of see exactly what happened. These commanders hugged it out, and in the end, it's going to be the cyan commander going up against the red commander here for the middle of the map. But all these metal extractors were taken and the LLTs were built here before the red commander died, so all in all, I would say this is probably a pretty good position here for the red commander. Probably would have waited to take that trade, if at all possible, until a couple of resbots were available to eat up that metal super quickly. But it's not like it's the end of the world here, and with Evangelion pushing forward with a nice army of Rocketeers here as well, I think this is going to be no problem for the red team. Yeah, those wreckages are still sturdily under their control. Well, you know, I say that. The grunts are moving forward. The grunts are moving forward. Oh no, all the Rocketeers are lost. The aggravators, Cortex Rocketeers, are lost right here. Yeah, Evangelion steps forward with the commander to reclaim a lot of this. At the very least, we could always degun this down as well if we need to deny that reclaim. But it does suck to lose all that metal that you traded your commander for, and then suddenly you just have to abandon it. Yeah. Cutting your losses here, not the worst idea. Evangelion, oh, train getting a little too close. Oh, big explosion right there. It takes out 2 more commanders. Probably a good trade right there, actually, for the Cyan Commander. Yeah, you know what? All said and done right there, I think definitely... Oh, actually, it wasn't the Cyan Commander. Who was that? That was the train. Similar color, but not quite. Yeah, it does actually manage to trade the commander for the red commander. We do have a constructor here that's not going to last very long. Where are the resbots? Oh, there they are. Yeah, resbots are trying to sneak their way around over here very carefully. I think we've won this fight, though, and it's time that those resbots get to work. Eating up the commander wreckage first, sending it all back to your tech player. Usually the right idea. If you can send your tech player a whole bunch of metal from the front lines like that, then they don't have to sacrifice their commander, or at the very least, when they sacrifice their commander, they can already pump out a whole bunch of those T2 constructors. It means they propagate T2 a lot quicker. It means that economy boosts by a whole lot more. It essentially starts an upward spiral that your team really, really benefits from. So one of the things that I'd love to see right here, we'll see if it happens in the chat, but one of the things that I'd love to see is Dapper Dan using these resbots to eat up all this metal and then sending it back to the blue player right here. It's going to happen either way, as Dapper Dan doesn't have enough production to actually spend all the metal on the front lines right here. Yeah, you can see overflowing a tremendous amount of both energy and metal at the very moment. Doesn't have nearly enough build power to actually keep up with all this. But at the very least, that does mean that that red metal, well, the formerly red metal, now going to be turned into blue metal, is going to be going back to, in some part, the blue commander here who's going for those T2 constructors. All right, T2 lab is up and running. 8 minutes, a little bit slow on the T2 transition here, actually, for the blue team. However, I don't see a single T2 transition here for the red team. Okay, interesting. Yeah, no techer here for the red team. Instead, it looks like Snorkelwhack went for just plain old aggression here, contributing forces on the front lines as opposed to going for hard tech like their lane opponent did. Ended up not paying off because I don't really think that these metal extractors here in the middle, which I believe are the only advantage that the red team has over the blue at the very moment, is actually enough of an advantage to really justify not going for a T2 transition. Oh, some damage over here as well. Yeah, those wind turbines blowing each other up. Very tricky. Eventually a T2 is going to come up, by the way, for Zemolox. Or Zemolx. Zemolxe. The red commander. Look at those pawns go. Look how speedy they are now. Running around like they own the place. I quite like the change, but I'm an Armada sympathizer, so take my opinion with a little bit of a grain of salt there. It does mean that maybe Armada is going to be more competitive in the 1v1 scene, though, which should be really cool. If you like my actual breakdown of this, well, breakdown, maybe a stronger word than I intend there. If you like my reaction to the actual changes, as well as the dev Q&A, you can always go check out the live stream that it was recorded. The first hour or so of the last live stream that we did, I just reacted to the Q&A, which was actually really informative. There was a lot of really good questions there and a lot of really good answers, so that was actually super cool. If you haven't seen the dev Q&A, I would definitely say check it out. It's up on the official Beyond No Reason YouTube channel. Or you can go check out the live stream, which is the VOD from the live stream, which is always uploaded automatically to the YouTube channel here at the Brightworks. Suppose it's a appropriate moment to plug the streams on Tuesdays and Saturdays and potentially Thursdays. We might start doing a stream on Thursdays as well. I've been eyeballing that idea here. We'll have to figure out the timings on that because Thursdays are a little cramped for me, but I'll try and figure out a way to bring you the very best and beyond our reason live stream abilities. But 12 PDT is when we do those live streams. Constructor will get the tail end of the economy that was left out on the field here. Not the end of the world, and especially to fund the rest of that T2 lab that's coming up here, as well as some advanced solar panels. I guess that wind speed not being sufficient right here for the red commander, although wind speed is super high right now. Yeah, it's points like this where you really just want to go into a couple of energy storages, like 4 energy storages, and build a whole load of wind turbines. I mean, you can imagine a whole field of wind turbines could really, really help right now. So many maces right here. Do we not have enough to just push and win with this? Yeah, this army is absolutely big enough to just win this. Excellently done by Chicken Nipples, just devouring the army right here of Fat Cop, who has slowly but surely lost one too many units, and this is exactly how you go up against these battles from, well, as a bot player against vehicles. You just have to take the trades when the vehicles come out. You have to not let them get the opportunity to spiral. Take as efficient trades as you can, and then use these juicy res bots to eat up all this metal and turn it into bots to continue pushing with. And just like that, tremendous amount of army comp on the front lines here. Just more metal for Chicken Nipples pushing forward here. Rocketeer's going to take down a radar tower. That's quite nice. Yeah, there's definitely enough to push in here. Commanders are prone to assault from maces, thugs, any of those light plasma bots. Fat Cop not reacting here. Gonna lose the commander for it. And that's some more juicy metal that the lime green player is going to be more than happy to eat up right there. Yeah, immediately sends the res bot in. Very nicely done. Maroon Commander, definitely suffering on the southern side. Gonna need some serious support. EMP Bomber is out here. Okay, so we've gone for a T2 air transition right here for Tim Adams. Or Time Adams. I think somebody commented about the right way to say it, and I can't remember if I remember the right answer. Either way, we'll go with Tim Adams. Either way, Tim Adams here does have an EMP bomber or 2 out on the field at this point, which does mean that this army is forfeit. As long as those EMP bombers get some decent connections, it will be more than enough for Friend to actually push forward and do a whole bunch of damage over here. So far, has the T2 transition from the blue team actually paid off? I mean, we have T2 up and running right now for the red team. We're not producing any units because we're going for the T2 metal extractors, which is always a good idea here. Where did the... Oh, okay, I see what we did. So we made the T2 constructor. We deconstructed the T2 lab in order to build a fusion reactor, and now that the energy grid is stabilized, I guess we're going to upgrade everything. Go for the T2 factory. Go for the T2 metal extractors. Okay, so the blue player is definitely playing the longer game here. Cowadonis not pushing for the win with those T2 units, pushing for the win with the T2 economy. EMP bombers being spared here. I don't think the blue team has actually seen those EMP bombers. In fact, the blue team doesn't really have much of an air force at all. We do have air in the back here. Kivitachi is producing out of an air lab, but it's just T1 economy here. There's no T2 constructors, so we're on T1 metal extractors, T1 energy production. And what on earth? How did this happen? I suppose there was an army sneaking its way across the southern side of the map, and I just didn't hear it. Yeah, okay, well, lovely. A bunch of Rocketeers and Maces pushing forward right here. At this point, the T2 lab is up here for the Green Commander, who did appropriately transition into T2. Yeah, this is devastating, though. Catching the T2 transition just before the units come out, but just after the lab finishes up, does mean that the lab goes down right here. Isn't the end of the world, because of course you can get some res bots and patch all this back together, but it does mean that no more T2 units are going to come out here. Well, just like that, the green player has been crippled. Yeah, Chicken Nipple's going to be forced to use the commander to rebuild on the front here. In this sort of a situation, oftentimes the best thing you can do is just build a T1 lab on the front and then start pumping out res bots and send them to the back line here. Get a couple constructors, send them back there to build the metal extractors, get a couple of res bots to go pick up all your buildings, and eventually you can rebuild in the back line right there. But just like that, the entire army has been pushed backwards right here. My goodness, what a crazy little run by with not assault units whatsoever. These are definitely brawling units. The plasma bots are not fast, they're not speedy, but they do have a lot of health and a lot of HP. Oh, that's the same thing, actually. A lot of health and a lot of firepower, I think is what I was trying to say here. Bomber trying its very best. Love to see that. We do have T2 up, so it's not like we couldn't build a couple Roughnecks or EMP bombers or anything like that to try and save the day, but unfortunately, no such response right here from Kivitachi, and so it will mean that these Tan forces continuing to, or are continuing rather, to move across the field and do a whole bunch of damage. Welders out on the field, I think that's a great option. Welders are quite expensive as far as T2 goes. 300, or T1 goes, 350 and 6,100. Cheaper as far as the T2 stage goes, though. And a great response right here. I think actually a couple of welders might have stopped this push if we had just produced those out of the lab instead of the hounds. Chicken Nipples definitely had a vision for what he wanted to happen in the backline, and it just didn't come together right there. Excellently done by the Tan Commander, who does manage to afford a T2 transition on the back of this. I would say that damage more than justified going for a blind T2 transition, just because of the fact that you know that so much pressure has been relieved on the southern side. Fiends have shown themselves on the south, though, and that does mean that we're going to need a full-fledged T2 response. At this point, this is when you start looking at your T1 economy and start upgrading it with your T2 constructor and start thinking, okay, it's about time for T2. I'd love to see that sort of a transition from Friend here. In fact, we need to see some sort of a transition like that from Friend here. A couple more Fiends being sent across. Man, you know what? The red team on the back foot, it feels like, but doing so much more damage just because they're being more aggressive across the field. Doesn't really matter how much, damage you or how many units you posture with if you just can't do any damage on the other side of the field. And just like that, we do have Fiends running around all over the place trying to find whatever they can. EMP bombers. Yeah, okay, they connect with a fair amount of those Fiends over here. Shuts down a fair portion of that push, about half of it, I would say. Weird composition we're going for here. A lot of rocket spiders. The intuition is that because there's these hillsides, the rocket spiders are going to be good. That doesn't necessarily be the case, though, a lot of the time. Oftentimes, those spiders can actually detriment themselves in these hills because they end up engaging in weird formations. They'll disjoint from each other because they climb up the hills and then they go down and they're split up from each other. It can actually be a bit of a problem, and sometimes it's better to just go for tankier units and send them through the choke points. Especially if you're limited by APM or by economy. Either one of those things. I tend to be the former, but oftentimes both at the same time. This is about as efficient a trade as you could find on this battlefield at this point here. T1 engaging against other T1, and it's the perfect matchup here. Thugs blasting away at a whole bunch of these aggregators that were pushed just a little too far forward here. I think we're just trying to do the exact same thing that Dan player Evangelion just did just a minute ago and just send a whole bunch of T1 across the field. Not going to work quite as well now that the rocket spiders are out and blasting away at all this. Yeah, a rocket spider going to have a field day blasting away all this T1 trash. No chance that this T1 push is going to get much damage done here. We might snipe the radar tower at the very best. Maybe not even that. Fiends are here to clean up the day, and yeah, that T1 has been sacrificed. Thrown to the ashes. Massive run by on the northern side, though. Should I say roll by, as it's a bunch of medium tanks. Well, are these medium tanks or light tanks? I guess they're lightning tanks. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be here all week. Lightning tanks headed up on the northern side here. The Jaguar is going to be causing some mayhem here. Cypher took a heavy blow earlier on in the match and lost the T2 lab, and I guess it does mean that this side is going to be quite a bit weakened. Yeah, no T2 transition. Well, we do have a T2 transition here. Why aren't we making Fiends? Interesting choice not to go for Fiends here. Definitely would have been the right, appropriate decision. Yeah, Cypher sniffs out that there's a massive run-by headed directly towards this base. Commander moving into position, but there's no energy for a D-gun. And this is going to turn into a tragedy. EMP bombers are here. The light anti-air, though, does blast a couple of them out of the sky already. Cypher trying desperately to D-gun, but doesn't have any energy for it. Oh, no. Yeah, light anti-air shoots down those EMP bombers pretty nicely. And Cypher does fall. No tripwires for the Pink Commander in this game. Those bases are forfeit, those metal extractors. All the economy right there for the Pink Commander. Heavy bombers missing their bombing run, but definitely a decent solution, actually. They're sturdy enough that the light anti-air on those Jaguars isn't really going to shut them down, and they are heavy hitting enough that the Jaguars actually crumble under their massive might. Wow, that was a massive self-destruct, but you know what? I actually like it. I think as far as disposable units go, the Fiend could certainly be treated that way. Fairly nicely done. We do have big old Rascal Spam headed out on the map here, actually causing a little bit of chain lightning onto this turret over here. That's pretty funny. Regularly outside just barely of the range of these turrets, but with the chain effect, they can actually reach out and hit that thing. Shell shockers over here are blasting away at all this, though, so that's nice. Going to eventually whittle that down, but I'm surprised we're not just going for T2 artillery. Oh, we do have T2 artillery. There we go. Yeah, Quaker's actually going to be much nicer for blasting away a couple of lightning turrets. Not that I think these are the biggest threat in the world, but I think eventually having these gone is going to open up this lane to a little bit more aggression. Certainly more lightning tanks wouldn't be the end of the world here. Rocket Spiders finally pushing up this hillside, which was, by the way, reclaimed by the blue team. Red player did lose that as they decided to tech up here, but it's all well worth it. We've gotten quite a lot of solar panels out here. We've got all advanced metal extractors. We're going for more build power right here, right in front of the T1 lab. Gets a little complicated on these maps with limited build space. Southern side, not so burdened, but why have we stopped pushing on the southern side? Chicken Nipples is well back into this game, going for a fusion reactor here, I suppose. You know what these butlers are great for? If you hit Z and then C, you pull up your wind turbines, and you can pull up a big field like this, and then if you hold spacebar at the end of this as well, it'll distribute that queue between all of the builders that you have selected, and what that means is that you can have multiple builders working on the same big project like that. If you want to build a big field of wind turbines, for instance, and that can essentially mean that you end up with this beautiful, beautiful eco-stabilization where at the late game here, assuming the wind speed doesn't plummet all the way to 1, you still have a couple hundred wind turbines out in the field generating a little bit of energy, or a lot of energy, depending on how big that investment is. But the butlers themselves don't draw all too much resource, which means that they can actually end up slowly but surely improving your economy over time until eventually it's overwhelming. At this point, the economy of the green player is vastly overwhelming the economy of the maroon player, though. It's just a misjudgment on the on the side of the green commander on the southern side here. The powder blue commander also building some of those T2, but again, with just a T1 economy. Important to prioritize that T2 economy. It's easy to forget just how impactful those T2 metal extractors are. It's 4 times the amount of metal, which is, I mean, if you think about four times as many T1 units on the field, it's pretty impactful, to say the very least. Rocket Spider's having a field day up on this hill. Maybe I was too harsh of the Rocket Spider. It is certainly performing quite nicely here. The fact that their rockets can sort of almost ride the ground. I know that sounds bizarre. That's a bizarre thing to say, but the way that their rockets travel across the surface of the ground is quite strange and quite unique to the Rocket Spiders. But it does end up actually working to their benefit here on these hillsides and whatnot, where they actually need to sort of fire them up and over a hill and then down onto the other side here. Rocket Spider's actually fabulous against these advanced exploiters because they do fire such a heavy burst of firepower, and it is a static structure after all. One of the things the Rocket Spider is most keenly used for, most wonderfully tuned for. Blasting away static structures. Static units as well are going to suffer the wrath of those three rocketed spiders. 6 legs and 3 rockets headed in your direction. Yeah, I like this Rocket Spider play quite a lot, actually. It does offer quite a lot of flexibility, the fact that they can go up and down these hills quite easily as well. Not that a regular unit wouldn't be quite so able to do that as well. I mean, more or less, right? The Rocket Spiders do, of course, have the option to go up these cliff sides as well. It's a bit of a trade-off, though, because they are extremely vulnerable when they're going off cliffs. You can see they're very, very slow doing this. So if you have anything like Sheldons or Sumos or anything like that to shoot at them, you can actually do a whole lot of damage to spiders that are caught like that. The spam is leaking through up on the northern side. Yeah, Mesa's not exactly going to be perfect for shutting this down. I think eventually this army is going to sweep through over here. One too many times has the pink player Cypher been kicked down, and I think eventually the nail in the coffin is just going to be these T2 artillery rolling in. Meanwhile, a big battle on the southern side, but I think the green force just has still enough mass out on the field here. So many resbots are available. We do have T2 Sheldons firing away at a lot of this. The resbots cleaning up this battlefield, though, is quite nice. Yeah, reclaiming a lot of this metal back and folding it back into the green army. Eventually, it's going to turn into T2 units once a little more build power comes up here. We do need about 4 more construction turrets here to make this efficient for chicken nipples, but as soon as those build towers come up and unit production is underway here, yeah, it'll be no match as the units are reclaimed. We do have Sumos headed over here. It's not to say that it's unwinnable on that southern side for the red team. If we have the right composition and we use it well, it certainly isn't impossible. Spy bots and other comeback mechanics exist for a reason. It just takes a lot to pull that off. Rascals now working on the economy right here for the brown player Lil Bert. Boom go the energy converters, setting ablaze the wind turbines, and just like that, Lil Bert now has a crippled energy economy. Well, oh, you know what? I didn't see the fusion reactor right in front of my eyes. Well, not the end of the world. Certainly not the end of the world then for the brown commander, who is continuing to pump out T1 thugs as well as fiends. Typically, Fiend Grunt is a lot better, just for the fact that Fiend Grunt can actually keep up with itself. The thugs tend to, or the Fiends rather, tend to outpace the Grunts quite a lot. I actually like that EMP bombing quite a lot here. Yeah, suddenly the blue commander is left without any sort of energy production. Here come the bombers as well. They drop their payload right on the APHIS. Beautiful bombing run right into the backline right there. It was short, it was sweet, it was simple, but it was extremely effective as that bombing run took out the entire economy center here for the blue team. Macau Adonis loses the entire main base. All of the APHISes go down. Gunships here, the Roughnecks, are here to ruin the day as well for the purple commander. That'll eventually be cleaned up by the fighters that are pulled over here. Why weren't there fighters positioned in an air wall or even just around the map here? It's a little bit confusing. Not entirely sure what went so wrong there. It looks like we're just producing fighters and whatnot and leaving them at home. Usually spreading them out tends to work out a little better just so you can respond a little bit quicker around the map. Maybe the idea, though, is if they're going to pull all the fighters, you might as well have them concentrated. The Fiends are still never dealt with over here. Oh, no. Lightning tanks eventually are going to clean those up. Twin Guard actually going to beat them to it here. Not bad. Blue player, rather, still in the game here. But going to be rebuilding from scratch. Definitely an uncomfortable position to be in. Hounds have hit the field. And that's great, because it means that, at least for the time being, T2 is going to be going up against T2. Remnant Maces are here from the front, or from the early game, rather. Honestly, more than sacrificing these, I think I'd like to just see them eat. Yeah. I mean, you can think about it as, like, that's an extra, what, 2,000 or so metal in Maces that was available on the front lines right there. If we had just eaten those up and turned them into 4 or 5 welders, I think it would have been more efficient than what we're doing right here, just sacrificing them. We already have the tick spam, so it's not like we need them for the vision here. As long as the Resbots are eating up any amount of this, I think it's fine, but might be a more efficient way of transitioning into your T2 is just to eat up your T1 army once you have T2 production up and running so that you replace them with those more efficient units. Advanced Metal Extractor is back up and running here, and it is continuing to blast away. There's also a Scorpion battery up. It's going to be nice for dealing with these Mammoths now walking their way down this hillside. Fiends also jumping on top of this, triggering that flanking bonus right here, which does mean these Mammoths are actually going to take much more damage, much further damage from the Sabo turret firing away right now. Yeah, you can actually see those Mammoths are going down super quick as soon as those Fiends get behind them. Down go those Behemoths. Well, not Behemoths, those T2 Behemoths, I could say. Adam Skull walking over in this direction. Cloaked and walking in this direction. Do we have any radar? Oh, no, we don't have radar, do we? Oh, yeah, we don't have radar on the back line. Well, let me switch to the red team view. Yeah, there's no radar over here, so that commander is never going to be detected. That's funny. I love it. Adam Skull doing a great play right there, walking the commander across. I think that's really, really nicely done. Remembering that you have the option to do that. Going for an anti-nuke here instead of the T2 metal extractors. Oh no, we do have the T2 metal extractors. Okay. We're incredibly strapped for energy though. The train. Learning the hard way just how difficult it can be to balance one of those economies. This is a decent Sheldon Bowl over here, but it's nothing impressive. I would say certainly capable of defending. Gonna be tricky to aggress with it though. Rocket spiders need to be dealt with. They've torn apart so much of this static defense over here. The Twitcher army going around building twin guards over here, I guess, to just keep the riffraff out. They're gonna be nice, I suppose, for rebuilding all this. If they don't get obliterated. Oh, which they will. Rockets do connect with a whole bunch of those Twitchers right there, blasting them to smithereens. Twitchers are not cheap. 210 metal for one of those Twitchers. Pretty expensive unit to lose a whole bunch of on the front line. Definitely don't appreciate that. Adam Skull over here. D-gunning? What is going on over here? Attacking? The Cold Commander's a little confused right now. Not exactly sure what he should be going for. Trying to figure it out. Marauder production is up and running, by the way. Tim Adams has had enough of this game and realized, you know what, I think with that bombing run we've gained the upper hand right here. And indeed they have. The red team pulling in about 750, about 700 with minus reclaim. Less than that, actually. Yeah, about 680 without reclaim. Blue team, far, far behind with just about 360 or so metal production. No reclaim as of right now. T2 army is built up here, but yeah, we're kind of struggling with the composition here. Chicken Nibbles would definitely benefit from including a couple of welders, a couple of rocket spiders, a couple of those reclaim spiders as well, the webbers. Mixing up the composition a little bit and spreading it out so much so that it's not just pure hound here might yield a much more effective army. At the very least, including a radar and radar jammer bot so that those Sheldon aren't able to hit you from quite as far away and you're able to hit from, well, quite a bit further away. We do have the radar tower coming up here at the very least, so that serves a similar purpose, but of course not nearly as convenient as just locking a radar jammer bot or radar bot onto any of these hounds and then leaving it be. Mass Rocket Spider seems to be the name of the game here in the middle of the map, though. Resbots have patched together a whole bunch of stuff over here on the cliffside. There we go, firing volley after volley of rockets up into the hills. Would love to see the Rocket Spiders spread out a little bit more here, just kind of move them into a big arc shape rather than having them all kind of concentrated. Commander goes down over here, by the way. A couple of Fiends are sent over to dispatch it. Not so sneaky as he hoped, perhaps. Maybe we should have done better to build a bot lab in the corner of the map over there and then go for radar jammer, all that sort of stuff, and try and maybe hide in the corner. Could have been interesting. 2 Quaker on the front line. I could have swore we had a whole bunch more. I guess not. I really feel like... Oh, yeah, we do have a whole bunch more. Yeah, why are those not firing? If you're going to fire any of your Quaker, you might as well fire all of your Quaker. Well, at the very least, these flame turrets are here to sort of mop up the fiends that push forward right now. Can't say I like too much that those Quakers were too far forward like that. Feels like they were a bit overextended. But at the very least, having those flame turrets does mean that you're not going to lose this entire front line immediately. Still, though, there's no Tiger tank. Well, pardon me. There's a single Tiger tank here. I think we need about 20 of those. Yeah, this line is suddenly feeling the wrath. My goodness, the spamulatory has been turned on. Suddenly, an overwhelming wave of T1 washes over this static defense, and absolutely nobody was prepared for it on this northern side. I am talking 0% preparation over here. Yeah, we had the heavy laser towers and the flame turrets, and that was just about it. We weren't prepared for a downright wasteful amount of T1 to be sent out on the field. The Banshees are pulled. That's quite cheeky. Sending in the T1 gunships here, going to be effective essentially 0% of the way, shutting down this T1 spam. The cumulative combined kills is going to be virtually nothing in comparison to the amount of units that are going to be leaking through at this point. Sheldon, definitely not ideal for dealing with these. Sumos is what you ideally want, but it's the brown player and the yellow player, well, it's the red team in general that has the Sumos on their side here, pushing forward right now. So indeed, a lot of those gunships are getting blasted apart right here. Fighters were also pulled right now from the orange player, and those are T2 fighters as well, so they're doing a great job. There we go. Marauder pushed through the middle. I wondered where this Marauder went. Looks like they just stormed all around the map over here, but a lot of them pushed through the middle. One of them is going to go all the way. Maybe not. Trying to micro the Marauder out of this. I think that Marauder is forfeit. Going after the fusion reactor here. I think that's the right choice. Oh, it just doesn't quite get it. Yeah, 47% left on that fusion reactor. A little bit of a bummer. T3 not able to do it. I think a couple of Marauders sent on the southern side might have been able to do it, though. Chicken Nibbles pulled the entire force up to this northern side just for it to get blasted apart by a whole bunch of T1 spam that was ran in this direction here. Mammoth's also quite sturdy against this house. Oh, no. How are we losing this? Chicken Nibbles is losing the advantage rapidly on the southern side. Massive T2 army has been allowed to have been built over here. This player was on T1 economy for about 10 minutes while the green player was on full-blown T2. Is this the comeback? This all spawned from the single bombing run that happened that took out Akau Adonis' main base. I think T3 production would have come up, a little bit more economy would have come up, and eventually we would have seen a full-fledged T3 army pushing through the northern side. Instead, we saw no army pushing through the northern side, not since the lightning tanks that shut down Cypher for the second time. Boom goes the base up here on the northern side for Adam's Skull, and my goodness, the yellow player is doing it. Snorkelwag finding the exposed weakness right here and punching through with the undying might of a million tiny soldiers. The toy soldier grunts run forward here, ready to blast down whatever they can. They're more superior comrades, the fiends, blasting away with a little bit more intensity. Gonna be happy to blow up that fusion reactor here as well as the rest of that base. We need to send some res bots in here to reclaim all this. That would be the final touch on top of all this, and since we're spamming out T1 bots, there's no reason we couldn't. Fairly minor critique of an already extremely successful campaign, though. Yeah, lightning tanks are sent around to try and clean all this up, but you have nowhere near enough forces. I mean, we essentially need to spam the lightning tanks out at the same rate as the pawns are coming out here, but remember the T2 was completely destroyed in that bombing run attack that was already sent across here. More bombers lurking around over here. Nuke connects over on this mountainside as well, wiping out all the static defense over there. Suddenly a Titan is on the field as well. Yep. Gonna be great for defending against these Sumos, sure. Gonna be great for defending against basically all of this. Here come the fiends and the grunts, now streaming across this base. The purple player falls. I have a feeling the blue player will be next. Twin Guard trying valiantly to hold the lines. Hornets actually pushing in at this point as well. They're going after the fusion reactor. There is a bunch of flak trucks over here that they're trying to avoid. So close. Heavy bomber comes in as well. Yeah, those flak trucks are pushing back those air forces quite nicely here, but it's only a matter of time before the side caves under the weight of the blue player. EMP bombers are out here. Okay, that's great, except we don't have any army stats out here. This is just spam that we're sending forward right now. We do have an APHIS coming online, so maybe that's where all the metal has been going right here for the live green commander. The reason perhaps why there's no T2 units down here. So don't get me wrong, these EMP bombers are great. They're stalling this out. They're going to deny this push for a little while longer, but it's only a matter of time. It's a band-aid on a gushing, gaping wound. And if this army isn't dealt with, this is effectively pointless. T3 is now up and running right here. Yeah, the base of the blue commander has already fallen. So many pawns, so many AA trucks, so much of everything. But it just doesn't matter. 1, 2, or 3 grunts sneak by and start poking away at the economy, and slowly but surely it all starts to crumble. Hornets manage to fly by too. They're so sturdy, they really don't care about that AA. You really need a lot of anti-air in order to blast those Hornets down. Fiend finds the squishy underbelly of the air player over here, Kivitachi. Are we gonna micro this guy? Well, I guess not. Oh, and despite it, he still gets the energy converter, which pops into the other energy converter, which pops all the build power, about half of it anyways. Nice push on the southern side as well. The red team comes back from this. My goodness, what a comeback. The blue team learning a crucial lesson in stagnation and aggression, learning that maybe the best option is just to push forward and use what units you have. Try to get a better read on your unit, and if you detect that you're winning your fight, you've actually won a little bit of metal, yeah, maybe it's well worth it trying to actually get aggressive and send some of that metal back at your enemy's face here. Boom goes the base of the Cyan player, who did get a T3 gantry up, but didn't get the opportunity to produce much T3 out of it, if any at all. The Cal Adonis is slowly crumbling here as well, as the T2 metal extractors start to fall apart right now, and we can see the metal resources are slowly dwindling. Not gonna matter though, the Titan is moving forward here. More than happy to blast away at a lot of these buildings. Titan's a little bit tricky because they have multiple weapons they fire, so you have to move them pretty close in order for them to actually use their main arm cannons. Well, there we go. Blasting away the base of Kavatachi. That means the air player is out of this, which does mean the bombing runs are going to be crucially effective. Not that it matters. The blue team taps out of the game after being destroyed by the aggression of the red team. It was just given so many opportunities to come back that eventually they allowed the blue team to clutch defeat from the jaws of victory. Absolutely well done to the red team for sticking in the game and keeping it up even when everything looked bleak and all hope was lost. Very, very nicely played by the red team here. GG to everybody though, and I sure hope you enjoyed this game. If you did, I'd always appreciate it if you leave a like on the video down below. It propagates them throughout the YouTube algorithm like the mystical magics that it is, and it really tickles my fancy every time I get a little notification about it. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.